I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
Lanny,
Bobby.
but today is a subject we've been needing to talk about a long time.
The old pH.
That's right.
pH.
It's it's so confusing to a lot of people.
And it's so important, though, in the whole scheme of things.
So complex and so important.
I don't understand it all, but I know it makes everything work better.
It's so important that they're, prior to us going live in a second ago, they're talking about cutting out all other things we do, including the chit-chat, to focus totally on the topic at hand. It's that important. It's that informative and that critical. And not to knock it, it actually is that important.
Yeah, we need to actually be real serious this time.
Lanny,
No fun, no jokes.
We need to shut up and listen to our guest.
Yeah, and we'll get him introduced here in a second. Lanny, do you know what pH means? What it stands for?
Let me think here.
Okay, we don't have time for all that.
It's a scale that reflects the...
That's not what it's. That's not.
I don't know what it
means.
stands for, but it tells you whether your soil is basic or acidic.
Well, we're going to learn about some of that today. Toxie, I have no idea what pH, if it's an acronym for something or what. I don't know. We just say pH. Lanny says pH.
I don't even.
But Dudley, you don't know?
I mean, maybe something about the hydrogen ion or something.
So let's go look at the couch.
I'm embarrassed to say I don't know that.
Yeah, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Mississippi State has delivered yet another guest.
Yeah.
We came over in a limousine,
Hail State.
eased out. Vaughn Reed. He is the assistant professor of soil fertility.
Soil fertility.
Don't ask him about human fertility.
Over at Dorman Hall.
That's right.
Well, so Vaughn, you're a recent dad. You got a little girl.
Yes, sir. Been about a month.
Right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Have you slept a night?
Maybe a couple hours over the past 2-3 weeks. So because I was telling you earlier, this is the first day I've gotten out of the house for a little bit.
Look
so it's
elsewhere
nice.
for sympathy.
Nice. Yeah.
Toxie's got a wife that's works at the vet school, vet tech.
Also, because our last one had there too.
Oh, that's right.
I spent every day this week till today at the vet school. I checked him out yesterday. My lifelong buddy Gus.
Yeah.
And he's
Coming
doing
up on
good.
13 years old. He's doing much better. He's
Good.
still a sick puppy dog, but
Gus
he's at home. Yeah, Augustus.
Gus has one of the best smiles of any dog.
Goofy Gus.
Yeah.
He's always been the happiest dog I've ever owned.
I tell you what he is too. That dog can see further than any dog I ever saw.
He
when He was
could.
young.
He's got the cataract
Well,
stuff going on now.
but when he was young,
oh yeah,
I mean,
yep. Everybody's got to be good at something.
he could mark them.
He can mark them.
Well,
That's something to be good at if
Yeah,
you're a
that's
dog,
right.
if you're on dog.
Yep.
So Vaughn, we're looking at you. We appreciate you coming over here. We want to talk about lime and pH and understand all that we need to know about
The complexities of soil chemistry.
Chemistry.
How did you get
That's a
to
big
be
word.
the guy at Mississippi State?
Well, see, why did I decide to spend 9 years of my life studying soil? To be honest, I went to school. I grew up on a beef cattle farm, and I said, and my mom was a vet, and I said I wanted to do something that couldn't bite me. So cattle could hurt you, animals could bite you, and I said plants don't hurt you too bad. So got into that, and to be honest, just decided to be a full-time student and say school's kind of nice. I don't really want to I don't want to get a real job anymore. So just
Yeah.
kept going on before. I liked chemistry, kept going on, and eventually got a PhD in soil science, and just wanted to keep doing research and doing that kind of stuff. So, and talking to people like you all, about trying to explain some of the complexities that took me 9 years of my life to figure out.
Yeah.
So you're Dr. Vaughn Reed.
Yes, I do have a PhD.
Come
Your
on,
little
hit the
Mississippi
horns.
State
What's
page
up?
there
Another
does not say
another
Right.
pH.
Yeah. Hey, ooh,
Yeah, that's
Another-
right. That's right.
I like what you're doing there, Dudley.
Yeah, PhD of pH is
There you
basically
go.
what it is. So
that's good stuff. So where'd you grow up?
I grew up in West Kentucky, around Muhlenberg County. Did my undergrad at Murray State. Finally moved over to Stillwater, Oklahoma, where I did my master's and PhD, and then eventually made my way down to Starkville. So
Well, there's some giant deer in western Kentucky.
yes,
You
there is.
near Paducah?
About 50, 60 miles east of Paducah.
East of Paducah. So
Yeah.
Bowling Green?
Between Paducah and Bowling
How
Green.
about that?
Nah,
Yeah.
there you
Yeah.
go.
Look at Ty. He's like a geographic.
He is.
Well, I have some cousins that live up there and
Got
have
some
a farm up there.
kinfolk.
He got cousins all over the
I
place.
do. Kinfolk.
Kinfolk.
What's a cousin?
Yeah. Kind
So,
of cousin.
I mean, none of us did just great in academia.
Wait,
Oh,
speak for
really?
yourself.
Yeah.
And we love to study
God.
what all the PhDs and grad students have done, like writing papers and citations and all of that. It is not for everybody,
No.
and it takes a special person. But
Yeah, because Dudley, you've been in school long enough to have your PhD, haven't you?
I have,
Yeah.
but it didn't ever happen. So just thankful to have you here and to put
Glad
a
to
lot
be
of
here.
this chemistry stuff in layman's terms for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean the real magic is to take that to everyday everybody. For us, the Army in conservation is every single person caring for a place, whether they own land or not. They're in a hunting club or may work for the government, taking care of some public land, but that's the Army, people actually putting in the work where the rubber meets the road. And when you can take the complexities of what his mind understands and bring that to everybody, that's what we're here to do.
Yeah. Why don't we start with pH and understand that, and then move into some of the amendments that we could do to help or whatever needs to be done.
Yeah. So you all had started out pretty good on roughly what pH is. So pH is just a measurement of how acidic or basic a soil is. So we were mostly there. And then it's also the measure, this is getting into the weeds, it's the measure of the hydrogen concentration in a soil.
Okay.
So so the H part of pH is hydrogen ion concentration. The P part, technically, why it's a P, you'd have to go back 100 years and figure out why we decided to name things the way we did. It's just the logarithmic concentration or logarithmic scale of pH.
And that's
So,
what the P is, the
That's
logarithmic.
the P. P means the log.
Ha.
All right.
That's
And
what I
so
thought
that so what that really means is that it's kind of like if you're familiar with decibels, like 10 decibels to 20 decibels, you're doubling the
Right.
sound, but you're not
Yeah.
actually doubling. It's 10 times the amount.
Like
Same thing
exponential.
with pH.
Yeah.
Exponential, yeah.
That's right.
Same thing with pH. The difference between a 5.0 and a 6.0, it's not one unit. It's technically 10 times the 10 times the concentration
Right.
heading the other direction. So that's what pH is. So the lower end of that scale, the more acidic your soil is. The higher end of your scale, the more basic or alkaline your soil is. Soils generally range 4.5 to here in Mississippi, 8.5. I've seen some 3.9s. I've seen some 8.6s. So we're all over the place. But you all had it 99% of the way there.
Well, that's us, but we're always
You.
just something 1% short on everything we do.
We're going to be a little short.
So basically, the difference between a 6 and a 6.1 is like double.
6 and 6.1 is going to be. Hey, now you're having me do some math. It's not necessarily double. It's going to be more like a. Why actually is that math now? You're asking me something I haven't paid.
But my point is a lot more.
But
than,
it is. It
a lot
is.
more than 10%.
Yes, a lot more than 10%. A lot more than 10%.
Yep. I was aware of that, but I was aware of that, but I wasn't aware up to the degree. What does that really mean? Like, is something is double? What does that really mean? So you could explain some of that to us. But more important, I think, is just like the application towards what we all want to do with our place, and especially growing stuff, but in some cases, just growing the natural plants that are there too.
Yeah, so our soils generally, if you just looked at a natural soil environment, most of those are in a neutral-ish scale, somewhere between 6 and 7. We consider that to be a pretty neutral soil. If you go into more swampy areas where soil's been weathered, a little more acidic. If you go areas like you go to the west around the Rocky Mountains area where the soil hasn't been broken down as much, that can be a lot higher. Could be 7, 5s, and 8s. And then you get into, production areas, and I am a row crop agronomist mostly, but I do work in homesteads, turf, that kind of stuff. When we start making When we start pulling things out of a field or when we start applying things to the field, that's when we start shifting that pH up or down really one direction or another. It depends on what you're adding into the system, what we actually end up changing that pH with. So it can go either direction.
And different plants prefer a different pH.
Yes. So legumes, if you think, I'm row crop, so I'm going to think of these up front. Soybeans generally like more neutral, so they generally like to hang out that 6.2 and up range. You can get a lot of grasses. You can get some other, succulent, other greens that can withstand pHs down to high 4s, high 5s, but they all really generally kind of peak in that 6.0 to 7.0 range. 6.5 is like where we like to be most of the time.
That's butter.
Yeah.
For everything.
Just about.
For most
about
everything.
yeah.
If you start talking like the oddly specific blueberries, blueberries like pHs of like 5.5, 5.3, something like that. So there's a couple of just odd and end, oddly specific things, but for the majority of the crops we need, for the majority of things that you put in a food plot, 6.5 is about what you want
Where we need to be.
So could you paint a visual picture of what like a plot that's 5.5 and it's got clover in it versus a plot that's 6.5? What would the visually
Like production wise?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Let's just give him time, like after a year of growth, not just right off the bat.
So visually, it's going to look kind of sickly. Those plants aren't going to look very good. It might visually look like the plant has been almost drowned a little bit. Like the leaves are a lot smaller. The stems are a lot more spindlier. They're not looking very healthy. The population, the canopy coverage is not all the way there. Obviously a good, healthy clover patch is going to be, you can't see anything. If you have a pretty acidic soil, you can start, actually seeing down through that canopy. The acidity for for clovers in particular is going to shut down some of those nodules that provide nitrogen to those legume plants. It's going to shut that down. The plant itself can kind of exist, but the things that actually help bring nutrients up into that plant, those really slow down. So that's very legume specific. If you had some other stuff that, isn't a legume, they're going to look basically the same way. Leaves are going to look a lot smaller. They're basically not able to, the roots can't explore as far as they want to, and they're not able to receive all the nutrients they really need to reach their maximum potential.
boy, he's really making a case for doing a soil test and getting your pH right.
100%.
We've always known it. He's just quantifying it and bringing it to light more. It's just the biggest thing is more compelling information. Hopefully, we'll get more people to do that and get those results. Because I can speak from example of not doing my homework and not doing the work I should and getting exactly what he's describing. So shame on me.
So, dumb question. Does putting out more fertilizer make it to where the plant can take it in without, if your pH is at 4.7, is it going to help any to put out more if something's tied up?
To a point, it can. But really, the main fix is applying lime to the field and actually fixing it back. There's a lot of times where you can. Phosphorus is one of the nutrients that when you get down on the southern end of that pH scale, we start losing some phosphorus, and that can kind of be a Band-Aid on the problem. But if you really want to fix the issue at hand, getting your pH back up to that neutral zone is really when you're going to maximize your potential. And in the long run, it's going to save you a lot of money.
Applications of lime, like, okay, the standard thing, call your co-op, they can provide it, or a farm supply place, and, ag lime type stuff. But then there's different types of that, and how long will that actually take to start effect? And talk about the, like, from, just say we all talk around here about dolomite lime, and so I think that's typically more preferred, but not always, depending on the situation. So I lime that, like today. What are the effects planting clover 2 weeks from now and going into the future, and how fast? And then are there other alternatives to changing the soil more quickly?
So pH is definitely one of those things that is not an easy, quick fix. So if you had a food plot right now, pH is pretty bad, low 5s, something like that. This year is not the year that you should be working on fixing it. It's going to take about a year for you to see some benefits from it. In general, depending on, obviously with food plots, there's some no-till applications as well. It takes about 3 to 4 years for most limes to take their full effect.
Wow.
So your first year's application, you would expect about 50% of your change to occur. That second and third year, you get up to about 75%. And it really takes that full 4 years before you get 100% of your change. So applying lime right now is going to be great for the future, but it doesn't do a whole lot for this season. That calcium carbonate or magnesium carbonate that is making up that lime really takes a long time for that to interact with all the pH, with all the hydrogen ions in that soil to really neutralize some of that acidity problem. So it's one of the reasons that it's not one of the sexier things to do in your fields, because it does take some time for it to really take hold and make an impact. It's not something, you apply fertilizer, many times you're going to see that impact that year. Lime takes a little bit longer.
Well, so of late, we've been talking a lot about trying not to disc up your plot to preserve the soil's integrity. But when you're talking about throwing out lime, does it have to be incorporated for it to
Or does
add
it
value?
help?
Or can you just throw it out on top and leave it on top? Or,
You can throw it out on top and not, you can throw it out on top and not really have to worry too much about it. It'll eventually make its way into the field. Now, if you did have, let's just say you had a couple other problems you needed to work on. Maybe you've got a drainage spot that you need to work on drainage. You already think you're going to have to get into the field. By going ahead and incorporating it, you're probably getting about a year head start on it. So you're gonna get it in the system a lot faster. But if you're already in a long-term no-till system, maybe you don't have the equipment available, you're more likely, you could still put it on the surface and not really have too many problems. It's going to take a little longer to make its way in, but over time, assuming you don't have a gully washer come through and wash all your lime off the surface, or wind kind of blowing it all away, you can get the majority of it in. It shouldn't be too big of a problem with that.
I'm surprised to hear this 3 to 4 years. I thought we were talking about a year.
Yeah.
I thought if Doxy limed this fall, next spring, he would reap the benefits.
I think there would be some benefits.
There's going to be some benefits, but it takes a long time for the process. So one of the things we recommend when we talk about trying to lime a soil is, if you have taken a soil sample this year, let's say you took a sample this year and you applied that lime, taking another soil sample next year is going to give you some indication of, is your lime working? How well is it working? But you don't need to take, let's say it was at 4.5 this year and you checked it next year and it's 4.7. You don't need to be changing. You don't need to make a lime application based on that 4.7, because your previous year's lime is still reacting. It still takes a long time for that to take into account. So a yearly soil sample can give you an idea of how well it's working, but you don't really want to make any adjustments to your current plan until at least that third year. That's when you can start saying, I didn't jump up as much as I needed. Maybe let's go ahead and apply a little bit more to that field.
But are there products you can buy? I've seen them, offered before that would
liquid
actually
lime.
help you with this year's crop, so that you could actually get started with the benefit in right away.
So the quality of your lime is probably the most important thing, and the quality is going to change. I mean, it really depends on where you get it from. We were talking earlier about, a lot of the lime in this region is going to come from Alabama. When I grew up in Kentucky, a lot of that lime came from, some mines out in the eastern part of the state. Kind of depends on where you have to ship it from. If it's high quality lime, and we can talk later about some of the numbers associated with that, but a high quality lime is going to be a lot finer, and that a lot finer material can react a lot faster. Calcium carbonate, magnesium carbonate, the things that actually make up lime, they take a long time to interact and actually move throughout the soil and really neutralize some of that acidity. So the finer you have, the more access you have to immediately make some responses to it. So if you've got a high quality product, then you're more likely to get some response to it for this year. But it just ag lime, which is just, you go to your local co-op, you go to your local ag feed supply. Ag lime is what they sell. That's generally what takes a little bit longer.
Could you grind that down? And
You could, but you wouldn't want any of your equipment to touch it, really.
Gotcha.
Lime is not, it is not fun on anybody or anything. When we go out and apply lime on research studies and stuff, I've got an old pair of leather boots and old clothes that when you put lime on something, it dries everything out. And so it's caustic, it ruins equipment. So that's generally why we like to hang out with somebody else's equipment if we're going to be applying lime out there.
kind of extending toxic questions. What about the liquid lime products? We see a lot of that.
So liquid lime has a place, but it's not as if for food plots, it actually could work pretty well. The problem with liquid lime is its ability to think about how much liquid you can put out on a field versus dry. Yeah. When we're applying ag lime, generally our rates are not 5 to 100 pounds to the acre. We're applying 500, 1,000, tons to the acre. So you're really limited on liquid lime on the ability to put out volume. Right. So for on smaller areas, a couple, 3 acres, a liquid lime application, you can make that economical.
But that's going to be a lot of work just on 2 or 3 acres.
Yes, no, that's still a significant volume. Yeah. That's why most of the time when we're making recommendations, a dry lime application, one is not necessarily better than the other. A liquid lime is going to infiltrate into the soil. You don't have to worry about runoff. You don't have to worry about 3 inches of rain coming tomorrow and washing your lime off or anything. It can get into the soil. But if you look on a pound per pound basis, they're going to react the same way. It's just your ability to get it out in the field and how fast you can get over the field with it.
But plants can't take it up foliarly, can they?
No. So so applying a liquid lime application onto the plant isn't really, actually, it's probably going to hurt things more than anything. Because you're not, the plant is not capable of taking up those nutrients. Mm-hmm. Right. And really, we're not applying lime for certain nutrients. We're applying lime to neutralize that acidity. And it's not going to make its way through the plant into the soil. So you really need that soil application. Mm-hmm. Right. That's generally why we want to make an application prior to the establishment or maybe at the end of the season. So in row crops, we're pulling corn, soybeans out of the field right now. Right now is the time that you need to be putting lime in. Right. Give it time to make its way into the soil, not really have any disturbance with any foliage or canopy coverage or something. Mm-hmm. Really gets down into the soil.
Yeah, so the liquid lime, I want to spend a little more time with this. So, you get a 2.5 gallon jug or put 2.5 gallon jugs. I would suspect that, a lot of that jug is water and the rest of it is just incredibly finely ground calcium and magnesium carbonate.
Yes.
And so I'm assuming it would work a lot more quickly, but still, that's only like maybe 5 or 6 pounds of lime per jug. And then you're comparing that to maybe putting 2 tons of lime out.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So when they tell you that you only have to put out 1 or 2 jugs to change the pH from a 5 to a 6.5, I don't want to say that sounds like hogwash to me, but
it sounds like hogwash.
So you're closely approaching one of my. I teach soil fertility and fertilizers class at Mississippi State, and probably one of the lectures that I get the most fired up about is talking about liquid calcium, liquid lime products.
Correct.
So it's really important when lime in particular is an extremely regulated industry. If you are going to sell a liming product, if you are going to sell something that says this is a liming amendment, a liming product, it has to be tested by your fertilizer regulations in your state. So here in Mississippi, it goes down to Jackson, they test it in Starkville on campus. But they actually have to analyze the nutrient content and give you a value that states this is how well this product is at liming. But lime is lime. When it comes down to it, if it takes 1 ton of lime to change the pH of a field, it's going to take 1 ton of lime. That 1 ton can be dry, it can be pelletized, it can be liquid, but it's still going to take 1 entire ton of lime. So a lot of the times we may see products listed that says it could change your pH, but doesn't necessarily say a liming product. Once it becomes a liming product, then it has to be tested. If it's an amendment or something that states it could change your pH but doesn't really state a lime, it may or may not be tested very well. So you're right. One of the big things is if it's going to take a ton, it's going to take a ton. You decide how you want to apply it, but it's going to take that much to change the pH. So you can't really speed up that process.
So let me ask this, though. So a ton is a ton. I get that. Simple. But a regular ton, you're talking about maybe taking 3-4 years to fully vest itself, or however you want to describe that, in the soil. But could there be a lesser amount that reacts very much more quickly that actually doesn't have all that residual, that you could use a less amount for the crop for the next 3 or 4 months type thing. And I felt like that's kind of what happened with what we were doing before, because it was so insanely fine ground. I think if it would have been, it would just been like a powder, like talcum powder, but it was, made into pellets.
Yeah. So doesn't that?
So if it got wet, it's completely dissolved and disappeared almost immediately. It was so finely ground. And I'm just wondering, I felt like that one in particular reacted much more quickly, but then didn't have near the residual that you really want from it.
It lasted 3 months.
buffers quicker.
Yeah, so you can apply some, especially if it's very fine.
This was really, really fine.
Yeah,
ground.
and it can immediately take into account, and it can start neutralizing specifically in that small rooting zone in that area. But you're right; it would not hold on very long. If I applied something super fine at a 500-pound rate this year, by the time it comes next year, your pH might not change at all. And it's because the soil really wants to resist some of that changes from a whatever pH it is to what you're trying to adjust it to. It really wants to buffer against change. It's kind of like us. It doesn't like to change very quickly or very well. So there's that buffering capacity that wants to slow down that change, and that's going to change by your soil. All soils are not the same. So some are going to buffer faster, some are going to buffer a lot slower than others.
Yeah, that's what another question I was wanting to ask is like, so, we do soil tests for folks. We've partnered with a lab in Memphis, and they're great folks. So
Waypoint.
you may have a 5.0 pH in one field and a 5.0 pH in another field, and you want your pH to get to 6.5. Well, one field, they may tell you it takes 3 tons of lime, and the other field, they may tell you it only takes 2. So is that something to do with the physical and chemical traits of the soil?
So it's very dependent on the chemical process, the chemical properties of a soil. But those chemical properties rely on the physical properties. So think about two different soils. Think about beach sand versus a sharky clay out, and you go into the delta where it's this heavy, heavy soil.
Buckshot.
The buckshot clay, that's going to hold soil. That's going to hold water a lot longer than your sand is going to. You bring that down further, and that clay soil is going to have a lot more binding sites within the soil to hold on to nutrients and in turn hold on to acidity compared to a sandier soil. So the looser textured soils are not going to resist that change as much because they aren't going to hold on to a lot of acidity over time. Those heavier clay soils are going to take a lot more lime, double, triple the amount of lime to change from that 5.0 up to a 6.5 or whatever you're going to need.
But the good news is that may last longer, that change?
So you're going to so if you had two heavier textured soil and a lighter textured soil right next to one another, you do have a limit on how much lime you want to apply at a time. And that clay is probably going to take a couple repeated applications. So you might need to put 2 tons down this year, and about 3 or 4 years from now, put down another 2 tons. Once you change that, it's going to generally try and hold on. It doesn't like to move, but once you've moved it to where you need to, it's going to resist change back into the other direction for a lot longer. So you might have to make repeated applications over a 20-year time span for a sandier soil. But by the time you get your heavy clay soil to where that pH needs to be, in general, it's going to last a lot longer there than a lighter textured soil will be.
And then sometimes you hear of folks, one farmer may put out a ton per acre per year, and then another farmer may put out 3 tons per acre every 3rd year. Does that,
So you're really limited on the volume you can apply on really the ability to get it into the soil. So if we're in a no-till situation where you're just applying it to the surface, about a ton, maybe 2 tons is all you can really have on the surface, but because by the time you get enough moisture to push it down in the ground, you've kind of occupied any space that was going to have available. If you're working it into the ground, you can apply a little bit more. Now there is some fear. Remember, we generally take a soil sample on somewhere between 4 to 6 inch depth. And so if you're applying it and you're incorporating it, if you apply 3 tons and incorporate it at a 6 inch depth, that 6 inches is going to be great, but it's going to take a little, but at some point you could actually overshoot that and get that up to that 7.5, 8.0, starting it to the other side. So it's going to take a little bit of time for that to percolate down into the system and really start having, our roots, we take a 6 or 4 inch soil sample. Our roots explore a lot deeper than that. It's just that 6 inch sample.
So how deep would you recommend incorporating?
If you can get 6 to 8 inches, that's a good. That's
No
good
need
step.
for deeper.
That wouldn't go any deeper.
Okay, all right.
Based on the research we've done in a lot of different crops, forages, even incorporating it much deeper doesn't do a whole lot.
Right.
Our roots can explore a lot further out, but the majority, 60%, are going to stay in that shallower root zone. If you have deeper rooting perennial crops, then they can go deeper. But really, that 6 or 8 inches is plenty deep for that.
So, what is buffer pH?
So if you get a soil sample, if you send a soil sample off to Waypoint, Mississippi State, somewhere, different soil testing labs, you're going to get 2 values back. You're going to get a soil pH value, which is what is the value of the water that is stored within your soil. What pH is that at? And that's going to tell you how well that plant can actually, what that plant's living in, what pH that plant is going to exist in. Buffer pH is a measure of how difficult that soil is going to want to change, how well it wants to buffer. So what we do in a soil testing lab is you add a solution with a particular pH to it, and you see in about 20 to 30 minute time frame, what does that pH change to? So we add something that might have a pH of 8.5 to your soil, and in 30 minutes, it changed that 5.0 to about a 6.7. Okay, that means that it is not going to resist change as much. Now, if you have a pH of 5.0, you add our buffer into it, and your buffer pH is about 5.2, that says your soil is not going to want to change very quickly. So the closer your soil pH and buffer pH are to one another, the more likely that you're going to have to apply a lot more lime to get it back up to where you need it to go.
Good question.
so-
And that probably goes back to the clay versus sand.
Yeah, that's where the chemical properties, the soil's resisting that change up to the pH that it needs to get to. That's where a lot of that takes into account.
So you would get if the soil pH, buffer pH are further apart, would it react faster? Like you would get a little bit sooner reaction than if it's tight?
Yes and no. If it's a lot further apart, that's generally, so then the numbers being apart isn't necessarily to say it's going to react faster, but that'll tell me that the soil's pretty loose textured. If it's looser textured, we can get a little bit more percolation into the soil, and then we could see some of that reaction happen a little bit faster. So it's not exactly a 1-to-1, but you could guess that some of that could happen, yeah.
So from time to time, I've been around people putting out lime, and you stand up on the buggy and you look down in it, and it's just this gray and it's real granular. But then I've been to the co-op and bought a bag of lime that's about this big, and about threw my back out putting it in the truck, and you open it up and it's like powder, like talcum powder.
That's the fine ground.
And so it would, I mean, there's vast differences in those two. Which one would you recommend a guy go buy?
So in the process of getting a lime regulated, one of the things they're going to test is the fineness and the purity of it. So how fine is it ground down? The more finer you have that lime, the faster it's going to react, the more reaction you're going to get over the time period you're expecting it. The purity, obviously, am I getting 90% lime, or am I getting 60% lime and 40% in whatever else could be in it? It really depends on what those two numbers will actually simmer down to is what we call calcium carbonate equivalent, or CCE. So calcium carbonate is the golden standard for lime. If you go to a co-op and you get a buggy full, most of the time it's going to have ag lime, which is going to be fairly pure, somewhat fine, and it's going to have a calcium carbonate equivalent of about 100%. If it's 100% calcium carbonate, it's going to be 100% CCE, so equivalent to that. If you go to the co-op and buy bags of what is called hydrated lime is going to be a lot finer. It's going to have a lot higher CCE value, so it's going to have, for every pound of it, it's going to react with soil pH more. So it really comes, and so CCE is one of those numbers, and then it boils down to a RNV, relative neutralizing value. So that relative neutralizing value is going to take into account the fineness, the purity, the calcium carbonate equivalent. So it comes down to what's going to relatively neutralize your soil the best. So ag lime is going to be kind of low. between the purity, the CCE, and the fineness scale, hydrated lime is going to be a lot higher. So it depends on, and there's a large price difference between those.
Yes.
So if you're going to put out hundreds of acres, that ag lime's looking pretty good. I think Mississippi has a limitation. You can't sell a lime if it's below 65% relative neutralizing value. Other states are going to have different. I know Arkansas is lower. Tennessee's actually, I think they're a little bit higher of it. But it kind of depends on your price value. If you're wanting something quickly and you don't have a lot of acres to cover, something like a hydrated lime is going to react very quickly. It's a little more expensive. It's very heavy, very dense, but it's super fine, super pure, and going to react a lot better.
Is that what people call quick lime or slaked lime?
Similar.
Okay.
So it'll go from ag lime to quick lime, and then hydrated lime is the final product. Hydrated lime is generally going to be used for steel mills. They're going to use that for some stuff. It's kind of in between there. So quick lime is going to be more expensive, and it's going to be fairly quickly. Hydrated lime is like, I can put this out in a few months. When we put out pH blocks trying to change the pH of a soil, I can put out hydrated lime and get changes fairly quickly. Not necessarily economical, but it'll happen pretty quickly.
Got it.
Is that what they used to line football fields with back
Yes,
in the day?
hydrated lime. Yes, that's what they use. They use manufacturing, roadsides, that kind of stuff. They'll use a lot of that hydrated lime. Yeah.
It is unbelievable how heavy a little bag of that
Oh
is.
yeah. Yeah. 60 pounds for, it's almost like a bag of concrete.
Yes,
Yeah.
sure is. I'm not sure. So when you look on your soil test, I just want to ask one more question about the buffer pH. Is there something you're looking for there that would be ideal?
It depends on when you send a soil sample off, depending on which lab you send it to, that lab might request, hey, what pH are you shooting for? Or many times that lab is just going to use their recommendations. So Mississippi State, if you submit a soil sample to our soil testing lab, that soil sample is going to come back, that fertilizer recommendation is going to come back to change your pH to somewhere between a 6.0 and a 6.5. The buffer pH number itself won't mean a lot to you. To be honest, you could give me a buffer pH and not give me any other information, and I can give you some indication, but I can't really tell you what that means. Internally in a lab, that the difference between that soil pH and buffer pH, that's going to change how much fertilizer or how much lime we recommend. But the number itself doesn't mean just a whole lot. It's kind of, we report that many times, but the value itself isn't as important as what the recommendations coming out of the backside of that's going to be.
Okay, that helps me.
Let's see.
So, if you only could spend money on
Here it comes.
lime, what is it?
Just your questions are just a process.
Well, thank you. That's why you have me on
Bobby,
here.
that's kind of ugly, Bobby.
So, if you could only spend money on fertilizer or lime, what would you do?
I'd have to see a soil sample first. I have to see an analysis.
See there?
It depends.
It depends. Okay.
Listen, that's our favorite thing to do.
Both.
Is just say it
Yeah,
depends.
The answer to that is both.
Well, I
So-
guess if your soil wasn't neutral, what was the first?
If you have a acidity problem,
Yeah.
if your soil's not great, lime's going to be the best thing to do because
you
it's
go.
going to raise everything back up.
Right.
Your phosphorus levels are going to come back up. Your micronutrients are going to be more available.
Yeah.
A lot of different nutrients are going to be more available if you change your pH up into that range we kind of shoot for.
Cool.
So
That's what I was going
So
for.
even
I didn't
like
ask the question
even
right.
like the living part of the soil would improve
Yes.
as
Yeah.
well.
Yes. So we shoot for that 6.0 to 7 range. The plants can generally exist outside of that. Certain nutrients are going to be available at more acidic pHs. Some nutrients are going to be available more at those basic pHs. We shoot for that range for kind of take into account everything.
Yeah.
There's
There's a chart that you
Yes.
can easily Google that shows where they all kind of seem to line up
Yeah.
right between 6 and 7.
Yeah, the majority of the nutrients are going to be available there. The majority of plants can exist and thrive in those environments. The biological activity within the soils can work in that range. So that's why we generally shoot for that range in that matter.
So if your soil is not within that range, you're better off to spend your money on lime.
Yes, yeah. Especially if it's acidic, it's better to go ahead and put some lime down.
And we do get that question a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So Bobby's crazy. That was a really good question.
Thank you, Dudley. You know,
Meanie.
sometimes I think
let's all
Bobby's a meanie.
I think Bobby's jealous of me sometimes. I don't know what.
yeah,
it
that's
is.
it. That's it, Bunny. I
It
mean,
is.
So let's just
living in your
cover-
shadows tough on him, man.
basics. So what's the difference between dolomitic lime and calcitic lime?
So dolomitic lime is lime that has some plurality of it being a magnesium carbonate. So when someone comes to me and says lime is calcium carbonate to me. We call it calcitic lime because it's mostly calcium. Dolomitic lime is going to have a majority of it going to be in a magnesium carbonate form. On the surface, it doesn't really matter. Magnesium is going to have a slightly better calcium carbonate equivalent. It's about 113%, but that has nothing to do with more to do with the weight. Magnesium, if you look at a periodic table, magnesium is slightly more heavier than calcium is. So because it's a little bit more, you're going to get a little bit more neutralizing value out of that. The carbonate is doing the work, doing the majority of the work there. And so if we say dolomitic lime, it's going to have magnesium. It's calcitic lime or just lime, it's going to be calcium based.
So some soils, when you get a test, they may say that your magnesium is really high.
Mm-hmm.
So you may not necessarily want to put out dolomite. You may want to try to get the calcitic lime.
I'm going to say this and someone's going to call me later.
Well, there's a lot of people that are, a lot of folks are into that 2-to-1 calcium magnesium ratio. And some people say that it's a bunch of hogwash.
There's not a lot, if you look at many soil tests, and I'm just going to speak because I do a lot of soil sampling in Mississippi. If we wanted to try and change that 2-to-1 ratio calcium to magnesium, we're talking tens of tons of magnesium or tens of tons of calcium to actually change that.
Got it.
So that ratio I don't generally follow. We don't see a whole lot of that. Specifically with pH, it doesn't necessarily matter. We don't have there's very little, if any, calcium toxicities in crops, very little, if any, magnesium toxicities. So I generally don't have to worry too much about those two numbers. If your soil test says you're low in magnesium, though, a great source for magnesium is going to be dolomitic lime. Mm-hmm. You are applying so much lime. Again, we're 1/2 ton, 2 ton to the acre. You're applying so much magnesium all at once. We're doing a pretty good job of getting that lime out there.
I can remember.
I will no longer worry about that. Okay, good.
There you go.
remember
You can sleep better at night
seeing that our magnesium was low. So when I asked a few questions, being an novice, it's probably in the 2005 to 10 range ago. And so the co-ops, we have, people do that all the time. We have magnesium supplements you get to the fertilizer. So I bought some enough to the test, and I just remember doing that. And actually, there was a trace amount of manganese also. Mm-hmm. So they had that. I applied it. It was honestly, I know this is all anecdotal, the most beautiful food plot crops I've ever grown in my life. And
well, those micros are important too.
Mm-hmm.
Remember we're getting off subject, but remember they used to have that Rainbow brand fertilizer.
That's the same.
It had all the micros in it.
Well, that's what the homogenized fertilizer, same company that did our pH fertilizer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will say the finest food plot I've ever grown. I think we just limed it and we didn't fertilize it. It was at the cotton mill on that hill right there.
And that's kind of the beauty of liming, is that liming brings a lot of those nutrients out. So when I get, again, in row crops, when I get phone calls about, man, I'm really concerned, I think I've got a micronutrient deficiency, maybe I need to apply fertilizer. Before we get to here's the fertilizer you need to apply for a micronutrient, I ask, what's the pH? Mm-hmm. If it's an acidic pH, hey, apply lime. That's going to be better and cheaper than any micronutrient fertilizer you're going to put out there, because it's just going to make everything slightly more available so that plant can actually get to it.
Yeah, but what you're telling us too, if you adhere to the discipline of a couple of years worth, you can change it and it may stay there for a while too.
You can maintain it.
It's not like an every year thing, like you're chasing every year fertilizer every single year.
Mm-hmm. So all these soil tests that we see, including ours, has a box that says, are you maintaining an existing field or is this a new field? Is that something that they're looking at specifically for lime?
Yes. So because lime, and this gets down into like some legal leasing versus buying ground, applying fertilizer to the field is not considered a land improvement. Liming a field is considered a land improvement. And so if you own the field, or if you have a long-term lease to it, or this is not a new field to you, you're going to be doing this, liming a field, you might want to put a little more lime on it, because over time, that's going to pay itself off. If this is a new field to you that you know very little information on, we might pull back some of, and it changes lab by lab, but you might pull back some of that lime recommendation and say, okay, we don't know what this field's going to change to. I don't know how soon I'm going to get back into this field. I don't know if this is the 1 year I've got it, or if this is a multiple year system that I'm actually going to get back into it. So that's generally going to be lime that's going to be based on.
So my next question, I'm asking for a friend.
Oh, of course.
But let's just say you bought a place about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And you
Over in the edge of Alabama?
You do a soil test and it's 5.0, and they tell you do a ton of acre or more, and you do that, and you test the next year it's 5.5, and they tell you do a ton of acre, and you do that, and you keep doing this, not knowing, nobody like you's ever said that it would take 3 or 4 or 5 years. Could you find yourself in a situation where you've put out too much lime over a period of time?
Very much so.
Yeah, he hit on it a little bit earlier.
Yeah,
look at
you
him.
can get to the point that you can apply way too much and overshoot. And the issue with overshooting lime is we can go up the pH scale fairly easily, apply lime. Going back down is a little more difficult. It's a lot more expensive. There are some products out there, depending on the management of the field, you can do some different things to bring that pH back down, but bringing the pH back down is hard. Bringing it up is fairly easy. So you can't have issues.
What does organic matter have a play in that at all?
Organic matter. So if you can apply and we're not talking like a couple 100 pounds.
Right.
Like we're up to that ton per acre situation again. You can apply organic matter. Organic matter is generally going to be somewhat acidic, and so that's going to bring it down. If we want to talk, you could pull, a crop that pulls a lot of nutrients off the field. So applying, planting corn, planting cotton, something that putting hay. Hay is one of the better things that you can put out on a field, because with corn, cotton, stuff like that, you're pulling parts of the field off, but you're leaving some biomass behind. When you hay that field off, you're taking a significant amount of biomass and therefore nutrients off the field. So you're mining the field of its nutrients, but you're also going to be mining some of the acidity out of it as well.
So
acidity
We're going to plant
back
some
into
cotton
it.
at the
I was going to
Ponderosa.
say, I'd like to take this opportunity to little public service announcement. If you were allowing someone to hay your land for free just so you can get it mowed, you are losing.
You're mining the field down. You're pulling everything out of
You
it.
are giving away your soil fertility and nutrients. You're ruining your soil.
Yeah.
Thanks for the announcement, Doug.
Well,
That's a good
how
one.
about this? How about you've got a big field? I'll give you an example. It could be 30 acres worth. It's kind of been taken over by Johnson grass, and if I don't do something every year, it'll be 6 foot tall plus. And so I hear you, don't cut hay anymore. What if I leave it like that and burn it off? What happens?
So burning it will leave most of your phosphorus, your potassium, your mineral nutrients. Burning it's going to leave it there. Burning it's going to pull off it's going to take off some carbon.
Right, sure.
Because you're burning CO2. You're making, this could get into another conversation. You're going to make nitrogen a little more available because you're going to burn off some of that carbon. But you're going to leave most of your mineral nutrients there. So you're not losing a whole lot of it for the most part.
And I don't know this, but I'm just my fuzzy memory. When you're cleaning out the fireplace ashes, and because my mom is a green thumb.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember. She's like, whoa, don't throw that all on one spot. It'll burn the plants. I said, it's acidic. She said, no, it's extremely high pH and it'll burn them is that right?
Yes. So ash is, so we were talking earlier about different lime sources, one of which could be, you could get, and they can't sell it as a lime product, but they can sell it as an amendment. So if you go to like lumber mills, if they have any ash left over, that's going to have 8.5 up to 10 pH. So it's going to be fairly alkaline. So you can spread that out.
Probably react fast too.
Yeah. Now, the one benefit of ashes like that is it is a good source of fertilizer. So potash fertilizer, potassium, the name potassium loosely comes from potash. Potash is what, when they would burn things down, they'd burn it. They would take the ashes, boil it down to whatever's left. The salts that are left, the ash in the bottom of the pot is high in potassium fertilizer. And so it's really good as a fertilizer.
Potash.
Yeah. But
Wow.
it
Learn
can
something
be
new every day.
Who knew?
They also make lye out of
Right.
ash.
That's
So
right.
I would think it could be toxic if
Yes.
you put out too much
Yes.
of it at once.
Yeah. You'd have to take a significant amount, but it can be a problem.
So I was wondering, burning off the field leaves ashes too.
Yeah, but you're not. You are returning ashes back to the field.
I got
You're
you.
pulling nutrients
I got
up
you.
in
So
the
just-
plant, and then you're basically returning it back down to it.
So what about fertilization? So when you're out putting out triple 13 or ammonium sulfate or urea, do those have like an opposite effect, like a acidifying value to them?
So nitrogen and sulfur fertilizers are two of the more. Nitrogen and sulfur fertilizers are the ones that are more likely to acidify the soil, so they can shoot it back in the other direction. So when we talked about earlier, if you overshot and you had to bring it back, one of the things you could do is apply, and it's particular nitrogen and sulfur fertilizers. So ammonium sulfate is fairly acidic. Elemental sulfur is super acidic. It's expensive, but it's fairly acidic. Urea is going to have some of that. Ammonium nitrate is going to acidify at some point. So most of those nitrogen and sulfurs are going to have some acidifying effects. It takes a lot of it because you can't apply the tons per acre that you need to counter your lime, but you can apply a couple 100 pounds to the acre and then start slowly bringing that down. So it takes a little bit of time. But yeah, those are some more acidic sources.
Good to know.
So going back to the question about could you be over time applying too much lime? So it seems like the soil test when you would ask, how did you lime last year?
That is one of the drawbacks of when we do soil samples and soil tests. They have so many samples coming in; it's hard to collect all the information they really should have. But yes, that is something that we should take into account. Homeowners should say, when I send this sample in, we shouldn't. But then also from my side of things, when I'm trying to talk to people, one of the things we need to make sure is taking a soil test the following year after you apply lime is not the best idea because you're not taking it into account. Not all of that pH has changed yet. So you're not going to have your full effect of that pH. So yeah, it is a drawback.
So in a perfect world, how often would you take a soil test on a plot? Every 3 years?
Every 3 years. That's generally my recommendation for most things is every 3 years. Now, if you have a super acidic location and I really need, like you found this new field and it is at a 3.9 and 4.2, super acidic pH. You could go ahead and put 2 tons out there, and then maybe the next year kind of take a sample and look at it. Maybe not make any sample management decisions, but look at next year's sample and say, I went up from a 4.2 to a 4.7 in a year after I applied 2 tons. So that might suggest that I could be up to a 5.2 next year or maybe a 5.0 next year. So you can take that as some mental notes, but you don't really want to be making any management decisions on a soil sample the year after you lime because you don't really know what that's going to get up to. You've got an indication, but you don't know where that final resting place is going to be with your pH.
Well, and one last thing, Lanny. So we're just talking about pH and lime.
Right.
You still should do a soil test to look at what fertility, what you may need to,
100%,
yes.
at whatever NPK you need
Yeah.
to have. Okay.
And it's in general, I still recommend every 3 years, but every year is not the end of the world. There's natural fluctuations in soil test values. I could take a soil sample today. I could grow nothing on that field. And I could take a soil sample October 2nd of 2026, and those values aren't going to be the exact same. There's going to be natural fluctuations over time. So to adjust for that, I generally, and this is different between all different soil scientists and fertility experts, I generally say every year every year might be too much information for you. You might start chasing something. We have some long-term fertility studies where we have not applied fertilizer in 5-10 years, and I'm seeing that because of those natural fluctuations. I saw a double increase, a double soil test increase. Like it doubled. It didn't double a lot. It went from like 20 to 40 pounds, 20 parts per million to 40 parts per million. So 40 pounds to 80 pounds. We didn't apply anything. Actually, we're pulling things out of the field, but it was a dry year. Not a lot of nutrients were moved. The crop didn't pull off a whole lot. And so we're just seeing those natural fluctuations. So a yearly soil sample can give you a good indication if you're on top of it. Sometimes it can give you too much information and say, oof, I don't know. I applied 100 pounds and I didn't see anything increase over this year. I need to apply another 100 pounds. Well, it could have just been some of that fluctuation in the season.
Let's see.
Do you have another question, Lanny?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
How much lime did you put out, Bobby?
I think just a ton. I've always been told that the soil could only process about a ton a year.
And you've done that for successive years?
No, not every year. I've just done it a
That's
couple
not
couple
true,
times.
Bobby.
Yeah.
That's what I was.
I've still.
That's why we
Well,
got you here.
there is a limit. I mean, I don't know. It really depends on the soil. If you have a looser texture, you could probably it can only take so much, but you don't want to be applying any more than 2 or 3 tons. 3 tons. I've never seen anyone apply over 3 tons. I'm sure somebody has, but to the acre, because it's just a lot of volume. A lot of acres you have to get over with that rate. So generally about 2.5 is as high as I would go. See what that does, because our soil tests aren't perfect. Like our soil test estimation of nutrients is that it's an estimation. It's also estimating your pH. So we have all of our models that says if our pH is this and our buffer pH is this, you should need approximately this much lime to get it to that pH that you need to be. The fear is okay, I said you needed 4 tons, but maybe your soil sample wasn't the best. Maybe somebody came into the lab that day and wasn't really paying attention to what they're doing. So by limiting how much a fertilizer or lime you're putting in at one time, your CYA, cover your butt.
Mitigate it, yeah.
You're just trying to make sure you don't overshoot that here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Have we gone over cation exchange capacity?
Okay, we can do that. That's not a problem.
Are we getting off topic here?
Well, that's part of this.
No. Cation exchange capacity is what causes a soil of a looser texture and a heavier textured soil to have 2 different buffer pHs.
So it's almost like the sand versus the clay.
Yes,
thing,
sand versus the clay.
Okay.
So clay is our soils are made up of material that has been broken down over time. So if you took sand and ground it down over hundreds, thousands of years, you can make clay out of that because we've ground those particles. So what you do is when you make those particles a lot smaller, you make their ability to retain nutrients a lot higher. So a clay soil can hold a lot more nutrients than your sandy soils can. So that means your clay soil has a higher capacity to exchange cations or nutrients. And so that's where we get our CEC, our cation exchange capacity from. Heavier soils have a lot higher than looser textured soils. So that impacts your buffer pH.
Yeah, Dudley.
I can finally understand that.
Organic matter? Is that a similar?
So organic matter does have a significantly higher. So if we just look at a scale, sandier soils are going to range a CEC of about 2 to 5. Loamy soils are going to be 8 to 15. Clay soils are anything above, clay soils are anything really above 17, 18, 20 plus. And you can go fairly high on that. That's the units doesn't necessarily matter here. For organic matter, we're at hundreds and thousands of CEC. So that organic matter has a lot higher concentration of being able to hold nutrients. But we have to think about the weight here. How much weight is a soil? We estimate that in 6-inch soil sample across an acre is 2 million pounds. So that is going to shift our CEC one direction for whatever that is. We would have to apply up to 2 million pounds of organic matter to make that soil be up to whatever, the CEC of organic matter is. So you can apply organic matter, a significant amount, and we can make that soil hold nutrients a lot more. You can apply, we don't necessarily think about it as organic matter, but biochar. One of the perceived benefits of biochar is you're adding a lot of carbon into the soil and its ability to retain some nutrients. It takes a large percent based on weight, but you can adjust that. So organic matter does hold a decent amount of nutrients.
Yeah. That biochar is a whole nother rabbit hole.
Yeah, we could go through a lot of that.
My buddy Tim Schalaker at State has been working with biochar the last couple of years. It's so interesting. Anyway, like as far as liming goes, is there any new technology or whatever out there where
Quick fix.
Is there any way to lime a field without having to mine the earth? Has anybody been experimenting with?
Yeah, the microbe thing is so groundbreaking these days of what's really going on there. Now, was there a natural way through that to help with the organic matter and release more and raise the pH?
Or regenerative farming, does that help?
No, that's a good question. So you're right. Currently with lime, we don't have any way. It's with lime, it's for potassium, or not really, it's for phosphorus. We don't have a way of applying things without mining it from somewhere else. Organic matter is an option. It is going to acidify, but we're talking orders of magnitude on the amount of organic matter you have to apply to change your pH based on what a lime should be. Lime is amazing at doing this thing. It changes your pH very rapidly. You can change some practices to limit some of your acidification. So one of the big things in row crop agriculture that leads to acidity is fertilizer application, too much nitrogen and sulfur fertilizer, and pulling nutrients off the field. That one's harder, and
Because you got to put it back.
in the modern age, we have to pull things off the field. We have to pull grain off the field, pull cotton off the field. But by limiting what's coming off the field, you can limit how much that's going to change your pH over time. So there's some management strategies like that. So just, if you're growing forages or if you're growing food plots, kind of leaving that surface there, not pulling it off. That's going to try and maintain the ecosystem over time, the cycling of nutrients into the plant. The plant dies, it goes back down in the ground and makes its way through.
But whoa, time out. But the point of the food plot is to feed your wildlife. And so if you raise a bunch of food plot stuff and the deer graze it down, it's not the same thing as cutting hay?
Yes and no. So you would think that in a full ecosystem, if the deer coming by and eating out of your food plot, that some of that's getting left behind. They're defecating that out. They're urinating. They're putting some of those nutrients back out. Now, if you have a really nice food plot next to 100-acre woods where there's not any other food plots in there, then they're going to pull more nutrients out of your field, and they're going to leave most of those nutrients somewhere else
in their beds.
Yeah. So, but in general, you would assume that some of that's going to be left over. They're going to go in the same place that they're eating. At least in general, they're going to leave some of those nutrients behind. But you are going to be pulling some of that off.
So we talked about liquid lime, and you made your point very clear about a ton's a ton, but we didn't really touch on pelleted lime. Does it work any faster, or is there any benefits to it?
The biggest benefit of pelletized lime is the form factor, how easy it is to spread it. Spreading pelletized lime, which is just they've added lignin, they've added some sort of something to just bind those that powder up together.
When it rains on it, it's fine ground and it would react quicker.
Not necessarily. It depends on the source. The source of the lime itself is the most important part.
So how do you know?
So the pelletized
probably says on the bag.
It's on the bag. The bag is going to tell you how well it's going to neutralize. But the pelletized versus not, pelletized is great if you have a spinner spreader on the back of your four-wheeler, on the back of your tractor. Pelletized lime is great because you don't have to mess with the fog and the super fine particles everywhere. Because the second it rains, that pellet is going to come apart, and then it's going to work just as well as dry lime.
So it all depends on the grind. How much passes through a sieve. All that stuff.
The relative neutralizing value.
When you go to the co-op or wherever and they tell you, I've heard this a million times, 800 pounds of pellet lime equals a ton of ag lime. And that's just not true. It depends on what it says on the label on the bag.
Yes. And so every large batch of lime is going to be tested independently. So you will get that out, you'll get that label, and that label is going to say this batch came from this place and it was analyzed. You can at least get this information online. It was analyzed this day, and here is the fineness scale, the purity, the ECCE, the effective calcium carbonate equivalent, and most of the time they're going to give you that RNV, that relative neutralizing value. It might give you everything else, but that's going to be the most important part. So if your fertilizer recommendation, your soil test, your lab sends you back a sample or sends you back a recommendation, and it says, we recommend you apply 1 ton of 100% calcium carbonate equivalent lime, and you get a relative neutralizing value back of 60%, you're going to need to apply enough to cover up for that extra 40% of neutralizing value. So if you need a ton and yours is at 60%, you need to apply enough to get up to 100% of that.
And oftentimes that formula is either on the soil test piece of paper, and sometimes it's on the lime bag.
Yes. And many labs, and I just know based on all the different labs that I've worked with, sometimes they will just come out and say, based on 100% calcium carbonate equivalent, sometimes they will give you a report based on what the average lime, I know this in Arkansas, the average lime in that area is 75% relative neutralizing value. They are going to give you a soil test report that says you need to apply 1 ton of 75% relative neutralizing value. So it's really important to read your soil sample, your soil test, and also your lime bag to see how much you need to be applying of both of those. Make sure that those reconcile together and you get the accurate amount of.
So the relative neutral R&V, the higher the better.
The higher the better. The higher the better. Yeah.
The quicker it'll affect.
Quicker it'll take into account. Yeah.
Man, I got a headache.
So what's
That's good stuff.
One more question. What is the basic R&V value you would look for if you were checking bags of lime?
If I just went to the co-op today and I wanted to pick up a bag of lime, I'm probably going to try and find something 80 to 90%.
Right.
You can get stuff above 100% relative neutralizing value. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's based upon the weight of the fertilizer.
Right.
Or sorry, the weight of the lime. Lime is based on calcium carbonate, quicklime or hydrated lime. So calcium carbonate is a calcium, let me say this again. Calcium carbonate is a 1 calcium, 1 carbon, and 3 oxygens.
CaCO3.
CaCO3. Quicklime or hydrated lime is calcium oxide. 1 calcium, 1 oxygen. And so if you have 1 calcium, 1 oxygen, that's going to, because that oxygen is what's going to do the neutralizing, that 1 oxygen is going to carry more weight than that 1 carbonate group. And so you can have 120% calcium carbonate equivalent from a calcium oxide lime. Same thing with dolomitic lime. Dolomitic lime is going to be magnesium, and magnesium's a different weight from calcium, and so it's going to have a higher neutralizing value based on weight. So just because you look at something and it says a higher than 100% relative neutralizing value, that can still be true. It's based upon the chemical formula of the lime itself. If it's a calcium oxide, it's a calcium hydroxide. If it's a calcium carbonate, magnesium carbonate. So it's really important to look at your label to see that information.
I want to say we had somebody gave us a sample of, like it was actually, what would you call it? Not a wettable powder, but you put it in water and it dissolves. I could have sworn it said potassium hydroxide on the back, and it didn't even have calcium or calcium carbonate in it.
So potassium hydroxide. So calcium carbonate is the 95% of the liming products that we put out on the field is going to be calcium carbonate or adjacent calcium hydroxide, stuff like that. Potassium hydroxide, KOH, is going to have some neutralizing value to it as well. KOH is a lot more expensive. So it's always the second part. So potassium hydroxide, that hydroxide is what's doing the liming. The potassium's doing some work, but the hydroxide's doing the majority of the liming ability to it. So there is going to be some neutralizing value to it. It's a lot more expensive. And so generally, if you're looking at potassium hydroxide, we generally think that as a potassium fertilizer, not necessarily as a liming. It has some liming capability to it, but
you still have to have some volume.
Yes, volume. Yeah, volume's the key.
Boy, this has been deep.
Oh, yeah. You thought we were going to get through this quick, didn't
Yeah, I tell you.
All right.
You've gotten a lot of education through the years that you're
Are we done?
throwing back at us.
Bob's
I was
trying to
gonna
cut us
ask him-
off.
I was
yeah.
going to ask him about gypsum next.
Yeah.
Good. Now let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Calcium sulfate?
Yes. So as I said, it's the second, when you
Right.
apply calcium carbonate to the soil, the carbonate is neutralizing the acidity, the hydrogen ions that's making your acidity high. The calcium is kicking off things from your CEC to neutralize. So on your CEC or in your soil, there's going to be a lot of hydrogens. Attached to your CEC is also going to be some hydrogens. So that calcium is attacking that and pushing that off so then it can be neutralized. So you can apply just carbonate. If you had a way of just applying carbonate to the soil, that will neutralize your solution acidity. That'll neutralize your soil pH, but it's not going to attack what's attached to the clay particles, that CEC. So it takes both. Carbonate is what's doing the work. Calcium is what's actually doing things. Now, or is what's pulling things off. There has been talk, things being sold as gypsum will sell you. The calcium in gypsum is going to affect your pH because you're applying calcium. The problem is you don't have anything to neutralize that acid. In fact, you're applying sulfate, which is going to do the opposite effect, acidify your soil in some cases. So gypsum is not going to change your pH whatsoever.
So all it is good for is adjusting the amount of calcium in the soil.
Yes, calcium. Gypsum is
Which
going to do.
I've been
So like
told
when you're growing peanuts and stuff like
Right,
that, they're just,
right.
it makes the soil looser.
Well, gypsum is really good if you have a saline or a sodic soil. So if you have a soil that's held too much water over time, the salt values have really increased. Gypsum is really good at pulling things. Again, it's attacking the CEC, pushing things off into soil solution. So gypsum you can apply to that, and it has some spreading capability, trying to make, especially on our shrink swell soils.
Our
It's
2-to-1s.
Yeah, the 2-to-1 clays. That's going to hold on to, it's going to help balance some of that problem out. But gypsum's really good on saline sodic soils, being able to flush that out of the system. But when it comes to pH, gypsum doesn't do anything.
So the one question we hadn't talked about, which is not a problem for a lot of people, but actually is for me in some cases, and I think you just answered it. What about if your pH is too high?
If your pH is
Sulfur?
how high?
Sulfur?
How high?
8.6.
Okay.
That's like a dang.
8.2.
That's
yeah.
like a chalk bluff. You're trying to grow
Well,
something.
not quite, but it's got
But where the chalk bluffs run
Yeah, I
off
was
into
gonna
the
say,
field.
You drive down to Brooksville and you've got the chalk on the surface.
not quite that high though. I mean,
So if it's in general, my recommendation,
say 8,
if you are below a 7.5, I wouldn't touch it.
right,
If you get up to an 8.0, maybe we start considering. By the time you hit 8.5, we have things that need to be done with it. So you have options. You change the crop, you try and grow something else that can actually withstand those more alkaline pHs. If you need to change it on a small scale, elemental sulfur, so you can go buy elemental sulfur at most of your co-ops. It will acidify, but the going down is of roughly the same speed as going back up. Yeah. So it's going to take 3 years for you to start getting to that. So you can use elemental sulfur. In research where we can spend a little bit more money on small plot areas, you can use alum, aluminum sulfate. Aluminum sulfate is a great acidifier.
wow.
Or just organic matter. Just
Or
keep,
you can be organic matter, but we're talking a significant amount.
just
again.
keep on working.
I mean, it would be multiple tons, multiple years in a row for
like
you
bark
to get
and
back
that
down
kind of
So
stuff.
it, like occasionally I'll get somebody calling in and they're like, "Man, I'm in such and such, and my pH is 8.2, and I'm dying to grow a chestnut tree or 3." And so I would say, try some elemental sulfur or some aluminum sulfate.
Yeah, and on a small scale, that is it can work and it'll do it. I mean, like I said, we use that all the time to adjust. We have a field at a 7.5 pH that I'm wanting to bring down to a 3.5. I'll just go apply some aluminum sulfate. It's going to take some time, but it'll bring that pH back down to where I'm aiming for it to be. So it's not cheap. I mean, I couldn't tell you what a bag is going to cost, but
Well, that's what the extension recommended I do on my blueberries around here.
Yep. Yeah. And if you go to your local co-op, you go to Lowe's or Home Depot and you go buy something like for hydrangeas that is trying to shift, it says it's adjust your pH. Most of the time that's either going to be elemental sulfur or aluminum sulfate, alum. And it's going to shift that pH down to be more acidic. We don't talk a whole lot about it just because it's kind of expensive, but it's a good way to shift your pH back in the other direction.
So one other thing to round out this, I know that you talk about the chemistry part forever, and I couldn't ever quit learning about that. I'm always fascinated with it. But so let's just talk about, say, call it 8, all the way down to maybe from what you talked about 5, in that range, and the need to, above 8, you probably need to take some action to drop it down, in whatever low 7s, and you're shooting for 6.5. But the other thing we hadn't talked about is, because I've looked at nature, there are good quality plants that's like acidic soil and like a basic or higher lime soil pH. And that's some information, especially in native plants, I think that is a little bit of a void of we should be providing for people, because, there's one thing to change to farm crops or farm clover or biologic or, whatever, deer radish, soybeans, corn. But there's another thing, managing your own native plants and stuff. And
I see where he's going.
yeah, so, you could either, spend all this money in applying lime and stuff, or you could propagate plants that prosper in that higher or lower pH too. But just the main thing is, what are the kind of wildlife friendly things or maybe are there even plants that can help boost the soil? You know?
Yeah, so you can have that's one of the things that you can do if you have a pH problem. You can adjust. So if we have an acidic soil, we generally recommend lime, but you can do it on either direction. If you have an acidic or a basic soil, just by changing your crop into something that can withstand that a little bit better will work. Now, one of the concerns is, especially from a plant side of things, is you don't want to bring in any invasive species into your area because that can cause major problems. But if you can find something that if you have a native 8.0, a little bit higher pH, and that's not going to be the best for some of your for some of your clovers and stuff. But if you could come out and say, man, I could have planted, and I don't have any examples right off the top of my head, but you could pick out something that fits in that range, that is maybe possibly native to your area, so you don't have to worry about being an invasive species. Planting that, something that the deer are going to like, and then also tries to maintain, it's good. You're going to have to pay for the seed, but it might be cheaper and might be a lot less management than trying to go back out there and apply lime or apply alum or something to shift that pH.
It may even be in the seed bank too.
That's right. It could wake it up.
So a great example, Jason Cleveland, we were trying to figure out while one of his food plots, he was like, man, I can't get anything to grow there. And come to find out, I think it's a remnant prairie. In that situation, instead of trying to add all these amendments, why don't we just let what's there grow there? And a lot of those plants are adapted to that really, really high pH. Out in Texas and things, there's some high pHs, but a lot of times moisture is lacking. So grow some native wildflowers that have been growing there for years for the deer to eat.
Yeah, you got to think 1,000 years ago, they weren't applying fertilizer or lime out in the field. So whatever's growing there is existed in that region, and it's going to be acclimated to growing very well in where it's at.
I guess I said that too, and I mean, I'm kind of looking at myself. We should try to, Dudley, that'd be your leadership there especially, but try to study that a little bit internally to provide that kind of information to people, because that's one thing, and there's certainly a growing number of great resources for native seeds out there. And then, that's a big initiative for us, just educating people on that too, because I feel like if you love your place like we do, the top words is always diversity. So you've got places you practice just like, big time ag does, but then you got some places where you're going completely back to nature, all native, management too. I think you need, I believe you need both.
Oh, for
and
sure.
all of that,
No doubt. And something else that I was going to ask, what if you can't get lime to your food plot? Just say it's really remote or really small. So, in the food plot biz, we grow a lot of cereal grains. We grow a lot of clover, and we grow a lot of brassicas. I would say those are the big three.
For sure.
Do you know off the top of your head which ones are going to be more tolerant of an acidic soil?
Clovers are going to be, because they're a legume, are going to be less tolerant. Now, I'm trying to think. There's one of the clovers that can withstand a little bit more acidic than the rest of them.
I think you're probably talking about crimson clover.
Yes, crimson clover can do a little bit better at handling a little bit more acidic pHs. Grains do a fairly good job. So grains aren't going to be limited by nodules that bacteria producing nitrogen and feeding the plant. Grains are going to be reliant on what nitrogen is going to be there. As long as you don't get to the point that the acidity is literally killing the plant, the small grains are going to do fairly well in that area, as long as you apply the nutrients to them. Now, like we said earlier, that if you have too acidic of a pH, then phosphorus starts becoming a little less available. So you might have to feed it. Might have to feed it a little bit, but small grains, small grasses are going to do a little bit better job. And what was the other one you said? Brassicas. Brassicas can handle some acidity a little bit more than some of the other ones can. So brassicas are fairly good as well.
It seems to me on the brassica side of things that they do fine in the beginning of the growing season, and then when it starts getting wet and cold, that's when they fall off, when the pH is wrong.
Right,
It's for some reason it's harder for them to.
Yeah, it's just that nutrient availability. At some point, it shuts down.
Yeah, well, it seems like a really sudden cold snap seems to suck the nitrogen out of them a little bit.
A lot of the times what comes at that cold snap is going to be a good rain, and that's a lot of the times where that nitrogen is going to go.
I got you.
Is it just comes in and it's going to flush that out, or it could stop some of that root growth. So that cold snap's going to slow down some of the soil's cooled down a little bit, and the roots aren't able to explore out and get all the nutrients that it needs.
So
there.
it's probably not a good idea to go in all in on the on clover, year one.
Yeah.
Maybe go with the cereal grains or brassicas or
Right.
something like that. That's why I often recommend a blend to people.
Yes. Yeah. No, a blend is going to give you the best of all worlds, and the fact that especially if you don't know exactly what that soil is going to look like, you've applied enough things out there that whatever's going to grow should hopefully persist. And that'll give you some indication. If you go out there and just your clovers are not looking good at all, that probably tells you that there's something there that, maybe you've got an acidity issue that's not allowing it there to be enough there. Maybe you got some pest or something that's keeping it down. But getting a good blend out there is going to give you a good indication of what's going to thrive well in that environment.
Good.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Lanny, I'm sure.
Did you take a lot of notes?
I did take a lot of notes.
There you go.
And I'm sure you
I love looking around, seeing people writing stuff
I'm
down.
typing, I'm
It's like,
typing.
this is going to be, you can listen to it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lanny, you got any more questions?
I do not.
I mean, there's.
Like
I don't think we've ever done one that's like the more rabbit holes you go
Yeah.
down, the more rabbit holes you create.
Yeah.
Because it's just such a complex topic. We probably hadn't touched on half of what he would want to. We need to have him back.
Tell you what, you've learned a lot about soils.
And I'm still learning.
Yeah, what it reminds
It's
me.
a whole world.
Yeah,
It's
but
really
it reminds
crazy.
me there's such a generality to our food plot warriors out there. It's like, hey, we need to apply lime and we need to, put the fertilizer under every year. And I mean, it's just not as simple as that. And while those things probably do help, and I guess for lack of anything else, it's good to apply things. Wow, just a little goes a long way for us getting, we keep preaching about the soil test. And I just practiced what I preach and did a whole new set of everything this year. But it's just such a great timing and eye-opening because right now, people can still affect what's going on.
Sure.
And honestly, I hate to say it, but it's almost too late for this year. Don't forget, just go ahead and take steps.
Not for lime.
That's
Just
right.
Put it on in there.
No, but I'm saying if you think you're going to just change your soil
No.
as quick as putting out 19 does, you're not.
Nah.
It's amazing how many old wives' tales there are about this. This
Everybody has a gimmick in the hunting business, whether it's some kind of trinket and trash for attracting deer,
Magic
or growing food
beans.
plots, or
That's
some kind of
right.
sin or lure or whatever. It's just the nature of the beast.
And it's not just it's everyone. I mean, agriculture is just as bad about it. There's all wives' tales about you can do this, you can apply sugar out into your fields, and it's going to make. And it's like no, it's not really how all that works.
Oh, Mr. Fox says one of his many son, if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is.
More than likely.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, is there anything else we should have asked you? Driving over here, you probably brushed up on some certain subject. Did we touch on all of it?
I think the most important thing I want to make sure, and you've already stated it, is that a soil test is the basis for everything.
Where have we heard this before? But keep going. I love it.
It is. You can't. It's not the prettiest thing in the world. It's not fun to always go out and take soil samples. Now, I would tell you it is fun.
It is fun.
I take several thousand a year. I do enjoy it. But taking a soil sample is going to tell you what's in that field. And whether you don't have to do it every year, you don't have to do it every other year. But if you do it once every 5 years and just get some sort of information about where is this field at and what did I do to it and how did that impact it over the past 5 years, you can take a look at how the fields have grown. This year I applied such and such fertilizer and things looked better. Let's look at my soil test. Oh, well, it looks like my phosphorus might have been low and that 19 really shot my yields up. My phosphorus might have been part of the problem there. So just making sure you get a baseline soil sample. Even if you don't always do what it tells you to do, every soil lab you send a sample to are going to send you some sort of recommendation back. But if you at least take into account and say, fertilizer is a little expensive right now. Maybe I'll try this next year when I've got a little more free money around, though. But at least having an idea of what's in your field at any one time, just monitoring what you've got available is extremely important.
I wish I could have all the money back that I wasted on buying phosphorus.
Yeah.
before I got a soil test and realized that my land was
High in phosphorus.
just from people putting
Right.
it out
That's
every
right.
year, and it
Yeah.
just sat there in the dirt like gravel,
Yeah.
you know, or something.
Yep.
Once I got my soil tested, I never had to put much of it at all out again. Saved
Well,
a ton of money.
He made a good point about it's not perfect science. I mean, you think about I made a big deal about a clear cut a bunch of big timber, and it's kind of a once a lifetime thing for me. But I preserved about 15 acres and actually got it stumped to make a big. I just wanted a big clover field, and I put the lime on it last year, but then I tested it again this year. I limed to the soil test we took last year, and it says it's the same. Well, I was so, what in the world's going on? But you told me it's taking more time to do that. But a 15-acre field with 3 different little samples is not perfect science either.
No. One's
So
definitely not.
so what I was getting at, and I looked at all these fields, and some of them all of a sudden said I need like 200 pounds of potash, or somewhere else, a higher amount just out of the blue. That doesn't mean I have to go to that amount, but it does tell me I should take steps to go more than average on that. So I was just trying to say that, understand, you're taking 3 little samples in a 15-acre field. It's not perfect,
Yeah.
It's kind of relative. Is that right?
Oh yeah, no, there is more variability in a if I took a sample here and moved over 6 inches, there's more variability between here and 6 inches than there is across a 100-acre field. I mean, there's huge amounts of variability. Yeah. So taking into account, it's not perfect. You're trying to take enough subsamples across a field to get an average nutrient availability for that area.
Well, so walk us through how you do a soil test.
Yeah.
If you walked up to a 3-acre plot, what are you going to do?
So we don't recommend taking a soil sample for any an area larger than 20 acres. So 3 acres is great. It's perfect. So you would go out and you want to do this random. We're just trying to get an average nutrient availability for that field. And so I'll take a soil probe in a bucket. You can take a sharpshooter in a small bucket. The things you want to make sure is you're doing it randomly across the field. You're taking at least 10 subsamples, and that's numbers. That is if I took a sample here and across the field, and I took another one, and this was 50 pounds to the acre of phosphorus, and that was 100 pounds of phosphorus, my average soil test value is 75. But that doesn't tell you what it actually looks like. So you take enough samples across a field to make one soil sample, and that is going to give you an average representation of what that field's going to have available. So take at least 10. We generally like to do 20, but I also realize time is...
And that's 20 per acre, or
20 per field.
Per field.
As long as you keep it fairly low.
The soil probe thing seems like that would be really important too, to get it that way. But so clear any kind of matter at all.
So you want to keep the extremely high amount of biomass. Like if there's a lot of leaves, a lot of pine needles or something, you want to brush those off, but you don't want to push so far, the very super fine stuff. You don't want to push so far that you're finally getting to raw dirt,
right?
Because that's going to, some of that. Right. And especially when you get into the forests and food plots and stuff, that top half inch, 1 inch is going to be a decent amount of organic matter that is contributing to your soil.
So, but like a little grass laying over and all, don't worry about that?
Don't even worry about that. Yeah, continue. Like turf, anything like a turf or forage, and you have just a little bit of grass, that's not going to impact your soil.
Well, that's a lot of work digging with like just a hand trowel thing. If you had what you're talking about, you can take a bucket and then mix that up really good and then take a small sample
So all of your NRCS offices, most of your extension offices would at least have a soil probe that you can go borrow to go take a couple of soil samples with. We use soil sample probes because they're a set diameter, and you're getting the same amount of soil here as you are getting over there.
Yeah, that's good.
Take it to the same depth every time, because you don't want to be taking. I could get a soil sample to a foot deep. That last 6 inches is not going to have as many nutrients as the top 6 inches are going to be, just by you've applied fertilizer to the top. Those plants are growing on the top, and then they're going to break down and move back into the soil. So that top 6 inches is where the majority of our nutrients are going to be available.
So the top 6 inches is all you need?
Yes. You don't really want to go any deeper than that. If you had trees, which are spreading out a lot, or perennials where you're spreading out a lot further down into the soil, then maybe your deeper soil sample could be representative. But 0 to 6 inches is really what we always recommend.
Okay, whoa, totally random, but my ADD brain kicked in. Can you change the surface pH by like subsoiling and bringing deep soil up to the top?
You can. So your subsurface, you go deeper than about 8 inches to a foot. That pH of that soil there is in general going to be what your native pH was before we did anything to it. In general,
Right.
Speaking in very generalities here, you can flip the soil over. I realize, in food plots, you're not going to be able to get a 4-bottom plow out there.
Right.
But you can, if you go deep enough, if you subsoil and bring some of that up to the surface, you can naturally change your pH to what it was before natively. But if you do that and then don't change some of the things that changed your pH to begin with, then you have a bigger problem, because instead of having an 8.5 pH to 6 inches, you've got an 8.5 inches to a foot, and that's going to take a significant amount more things to fix.
Just curious. I guess the biggest reason I do it anyway is for loosening the soil for root growth.
Yeah,
and
you
all that.
can,
Anyway,
yeah, very much
I'm
so.
just wondering, if you had so much decay matter on top over time, it had gotten more acid. Could you help it by subsoiling? I don't know.
So we see in no-till environments, and this takes many years, about 20 to 30 years, but an environment where that is an undisturbed soil profile, that top 1 inch is going to be more acidic than the rest of that. And that's because of that organic matter. It's because of any nutrients that have set up there. That's going to be a little more acidic. Now, for food plots, we don't have to worry about it too much. But if we got into, row crop agriculture environments where you've applied a significant amount of fertilizer over time, that could change that top 1-2 inches soil pH down to about a 4-5. If you take a 0 to 6 soil sample, that might tell you if pH is 6.5, we're good. But that top 1 or 2 inches might be extremely acidic, which can impact nutrient availability. It can impact plants being grown. One of the more important things that we see is herbicide efficacy. I had to make sure I say that word right.
Yeah.
So, and there's certain herbicides that don't exist as long. They don't persist as long in the soil in a super acidic environment, or worse, persist too long in an acidic environment. So,
Yeah, like Escort and some of those. If it's what's the other one? Metsulfuron, methyl, sulfometron. They'll stay in the soil longer with the high pH.
I can remember trying to grow food plots in like on age-old place we don't have anymore, the cotton mill, but it had been farmed for many, many years. All those pine plantations they farmed them, but that was back in the day, long before Roundup and anything, and all the chemicals they tried to use for farming soybeans back then, and you literally couldn't grow anything there in certain spots at all. And I always felt like it was in fact, it was towards where it drained, and I think that
Herbicide.
Yes,
was in
sir.
it.
I had no question in my mind. Neutralized stuff, and who knows what they used back then in farming the chemicals, but I think it did. Anyway, I'm just curious. I kind of just inherited it, and we do have a tractor big enough to pull it. It is a subsoiler, and it was actually, I forgot how wide, but it had 5 of the
It's a big one.
prong, yeah, and it would go deep. But then we took them. What they did,
Cut it down to 3.
cut it down to actually 2, and it was the exact same width. Like no, it was 3, 6 foot. I think the whole thing was 12, so they could rip to plant pines with. Which would do great. But anyway, my point is, having taken all the other ones off, but those, I might just try it somewhere and see what happens.
Let's do it.
I've been doing it all the last couple of weeks at my place. I've got a little one shanker.
Oh, yeah.
And it goes about 14, 15 inches deep.
That's plenty deep enough to make a difference.
Yeah.
I was thinking about you talking about you'd built up some potassium toxicity almost because of, again and again and again, fertilizer. Phosphorus, okay. And that might help it.
yeah, you can average out. I mean, just again, law of averages. You take that top layer, you incorporate it with the bottom, and you can lower those soil test values over time on that shallower soil sample value.
That was on another place, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was his other.
Yeah.
Yes.
I tell you what, this has been a lot of information.
Good thing we didn't do a rapid fire.
You can't learn too much. It's so complex.
No,
It
yeah.
is
I
very
tell you,
complex.
you're an impressive guy.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
He
it.
knows his stuff.
He
It's
does.
not easy to put chemistry into layman's terms because if you understand chemistry, then it's so much easier
Yeah.
to
Yes.
understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it takes somebody special to explain it to people that don't get the chemistry like us.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back. We've said it before. The soil test. You're not a lot of guys sitting here have said that, and boy, we see them come in all the time and these recommendations, and well, it feels good knowing people are trying to do what's right.
It reminds me that whether it's a 1,000-acre field in the Arkansas Mississippi Delta, or if it's a food plot 2 acres in the middle of a warehouse or hunting lease, it's still soil. It's still the same. It's still the same chemistry required, and that as food plot and wildlife management and conservationists, we need to try to learn everything we can to the degree, instead of just sling it out and hope for the best type of thing.
Well, we're trying to be good stewards, and soil is where life begins. It's
and actually it ends.
Yeah,
Both come and go from it.
There it is.
So when you got to Mississippi, had you heard about like over in the Mississippi Delta where the topsoil is so deep? Was that something that just really shocked and surprised you to see that?
No, I was very surprised. I had never. First time I'd came to Mississippi was I'd driven down 45 to go to Tuscaloosa. My buddy had lived there, and so I'd driven through this area, so I knew it was the eastern part of the state was a decent amount of row crop and that kind of stuff. But my first year here was, oh my God, this is a different planet from anywhere I've ever been before, because my dad always used to make the joke in Kentucky is that there's one rock that covers the entire state of Kentucky. It just depends on how deep you've got to dig to go find it. And so it might be on the surface. You might find it 6 inches deep, something like that. So then I get here, in Oklahoma, it's just dry. And so you can't go, you get to concrete about a foot down. Then I get here and it's like, oh, you can go as deep as you want to do. You can go find everything and anything you want to go, the deeper you go. So
didn't I hear one time, you can correct me or whatever, that the average topsoil for the entire state of Mississippi is a 1/2 inch. And then the Delta is like 52 inches or something like that.
I have no idea, but nothing would surprise me.
I think that's right.
And there are places
Or
where
maybe
it's
it's
even
inside
deeper
the levee, it's that, but it's a number like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Delta has just had thousands of years of soil being deposited from,
Well, the thing that it reminded me of too, and the point when I heard this, it's been a while, was trying to make it so that soil is so deep, the average is half. Think about how much has no topsoil to get that average there.
we need to. That needs to be another podcast where we talk about the ages of soil, soil formation, the horizons of the soil horizons, and all of that.
Would that be you? Is that something you could
If
talk
we
to us
hadn't run
about?
him off yet, yeah.
We'll get you another Reuben sandwich.
I have some of that information as soil pedologists or someone in the NRCS. They are really good at knowing this.
Well, you need to bring one on with you, and then you can do it.
Yeah. The ones who
Alpha
sit and
soils.
study. Oh yeah, you started getting into all the
Weird
horizons
names, and then the different clay particles.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Lanny, he's got a Great Dane. Can you imagine a a dog that big around your house?
Good.
She is
A Great
large.
Dame? You talking about his wife?
Dane.
Oh, I
That
thought you said a Great Dame. Okay, I'm sorry.
I don't know that I
Yes.
know anybody that's got a Great Dane.
Kylie. Doesn't Kylie have a Great Dane? Or
I'm
she had
married
one?
to a Great Dame.
Yeah.
Let me
Dame.
Oh, okay. Man, I was going to say.
I had a buddy growing
Kylie
up
had
that
one.
had a
Did you?
black
Yeah.
and white one, and its name was Astro.
Oh,
It's
God.
just like on
Bird dog,
our
Astro.
favorite cartoon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rutro.
Rutro. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dr. Vaughn Reed, we've enjoyed having you over here. We've
this is
kept
glad
you
to be
a
here.
long time. You've been squirming on the couch there for at least 30 minutes now.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come up here and talk. This is what I do, so I enjoyed it.
Well, I expect we'll do this again.
Sure.
Yeah,
We've
sure.
answered
That'd be
a lot of
great.
questions. It's been one of the most informative we've ever done.
Love of Earth.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Soil, not dirt.
So, are we doing a review today?
No, we're not. We're
No.
not doing
Well, let's do a review because I just got one and you're going to love it.
it. Okay.
I mean,
Whatever.
hot off the press. Says you've got mail. This is on our podcast page. First blood on the biologic here.
Okay. Well, I got a couple more we can add to it. So
Okay. My son Ridge got his first deer this past weekend, a 3-point, during the North Carolina youth hunt over the top of a biologic clover field. And it is. Thanks so much for the great podcast and all the education and entertainment you provide. God bless you all. Miles Bell.
God bless you, Miles.
Yeah,
about
and that,
that?
I mean, that's literally came in at 217.
While we're doing this,
Not
yeah.
off the press.
While we're sitting here and not in a deer stand,
Yeah.
in an office,
Bobby.
in a studio.
So
Bobby?
some other guys that contacted us this week, Kyle Hammonds killed a really nice deer in Tennessee.
Nice.
Tommy Lawrence, who is 54 years old, just killed his first deer with
Young
a,
man.
with a bow. It was a great buck in
nice.
velvet. I'm not sure where that was, but it was a beautiful deer.
I detect you have antler envy.
And no,
Always.
it was a nice one, but I'm trying to get over my antler envy. Will Hamino killed a really nice
our
there's
buddy.
a true American hero
Yeah.
and friend of the brand.
big
So,
velvet deer.
My understanding was the feat was not as much the deer, was that I think it was his first deer with his wife with him in the,
wow.
in the
Yeah,
in the stand.
She's a big hunter.
Will.
too.
How
Yep.
about that?
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, guys, y'all send in your blood on the biological. We'll
Yep.
mention them.
Don't forget to sign up for at the Gamekeeper giveaway for the nozzle rifle coming up. It's going to end November 1st, so it's your chance to win a great hunting rig.
That's right. And if you subscribe, the fall issue is in the mail, headed to you right now.
Yeah,
It's a good one. Well, Vaughn, thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for
thank
being
you.
here.
I
Yeah.
think that we
y'all.
about touched
Yeah,
on
we're in overtime.
everything. So why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley.
Get us out of here, Mitchell.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast. And be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.